Somehow, the addition of an infant to the crew seemed to shrink the available manpower by 2. How +1 could equal -2 had been something of a mystery to Byron. Surely only a single soul was required to take care of an infant at any given moment, and yet everyone seemed to be constantly running back and forth on some essential errand in service of the pink-faced, colicky despot. Or, if they were not so engaged, then they were lying sprawled on a divan, driven to unconsciousness by bone-deep exhaustion. Byron had read that a fawn born in the morning could walk by the evening. Shark pups were born swimming, snapping, and eager to feed. But the human race came into the world with all the physical prowess of a custard and all the independence of a pimple. How one small human could make such an overwhelming volume of chaos was at first baffling, though Byron realized soon enough that the infant, while occupying the entire attention of one person, and often a second who was needed to take care of the first, was simultaneously creating a mess befitting a small army. A fine silt of talcum powder had settled over nearly everything. The ghostly stains of spit-ups still haunted the rugs, shams, and drapes of every cabin and stateroom. The dishes in the sink seemed to spring up like mushrooms overnight. Laundry, while a priority, was always in a state of utter crisis, as it seemed the infant was determined to leave her mark on every fibre available. And something essential was always missing: the tin of safety pins, a bonnet, a burnt cloth, or the tub of rash cream, of which there was precisely one. These necessities were all constantly popping in and out of existence, snatched away by gremlins or squirreled away by the absent-minded insomniacs in charge of keeping one wriggling, roaring human spawn from expiring. Yet Byron was loath to complain. As onerous as the work was, his role in it was not all-consuming. Maria, on the other hand, was still nursing. She was the one who the tyrant summoned half a dozen times a day and as often in the night. To her credit, she bore the runt's requirements with a drowsy sort of delight. Of course, she had her moments of consternation. She was not impervious to the tedium, but in general she seemed merely relieved to have her daughter to herself. She nursed it, burped it, bounced it, and spoke to it in that secret language shared by mothers and their bantlings. Anne, who had reared the broods of several families, was the cavalry. She could change a diaper in the time it took Byron to snap open a napkin, and seemed as dexterous with one hand bound to the joyless bundle as he was with 2 free hands. For the most part, he played a supportive role, which meant much dashing about, but very little direct contact with the tiny boarder, as was his preference. He had managed to get through more than a week without having to change the infant's diaper, a feat that required he busy himself with other unlikable chores and occasionally hide in the communications closet. He knew it was a streak that could not last forever. His run of good luck came to an end while he was taking the long way from the nursery to the galley, through the gun deck, that ironically was at present the quietest spot aboard. He was ruminating upon a disappointing trifle that had not set properly, when he looked up to see Anne charging at him, with the infant held out before her like a figurehead. "Can you change her, please? Maria's asleep at last, poor dear, and I need to go downstairs." Byron resisted the urge to back away, but did not accept the proffered bundle, which seemed to be staring blearily at some point over his head. He smiled bravely. "Whatever it is, I'll fetch it for you. What do you need?" "A lavatory, Byron. Now stick out your hands, please. Please. There we are. Support her head. That's it. Very good. Now remember what we talked about. Wipe front to back, 2 dashes of powder, and keep a finger under the pin. I believe in you," Anne said, and left him at a trot. The moment she was gone, the infant began to cry. It was a feeble sort of sound that couldn't even strike up a compelling echo in the open length of the gun deck, though what it lacked in volume it made up for with breathless persistence. He carried the bawling thing to the changing station on the 3rd floor, which was in actuality just a table in the dining room that had been covered in several quilts and stocked with a supply of cloth diapers. When he laid the swaddled babe down and unwrapped it, the infant began to thrash its legs and arms as if it would run away. He knew for a fact that if it fell on the floor, he would have no choice but to walk down to the main hatch, open it, and see himself out, because that would be the gentlest death he could hope for. Byron marshaled the imp to the middle of the table and unwrapped its diaper. Oh, no, it's everywhere. Oh, God, don't put your hand down there. No, don't," Byron said, as he began mopping up the mess with a damp cloth. His efforts made his head shake, and again the infant squinted over his ear. Realizing that it was fascinated by his antler, Byron began ticking his head back and forth to distract it while he worked. He rehearsed the phrase, front to back, dash dash, finger under the pin, in a sing-song voice, which it seemed to like, so he repeated the refrain. By the time he had a new diaper pinned in place, the infant wore a toothless, open-mouthed smile. "Oh, look, it can be happy. You are a jolly little thing, aren't you? Yes, you are. We all like a dry bum, I suppose, unless you're a frog. You're not a frog, are you? You do look a bit like a frog. Ribbit, ribbit." "Her name's Olivette, Byron." Anne stood in the hatchway. She was flushed from running, probably whipped along by the worry that he would botch the procedure. As she caught her breath, she said, "She's a baby now, but she's going to get bigger. They always do. And when she does, I will make sure she does not call you an it, or a thing, or a frog, for heaven's sake. She will call you Uncle Byron, and you'll call her Olivette, or Little Miss, or Niece, if you like." "Of course," Byron said, suffering a flurry of shame. "She tried to get away. I stopped her. It's like that for a long time." Anne took Olivette, and Byron pretended not to notice her subtle inspection of his work. "Then one day they finally do escape, and you don't feel free. You just feel left behind.